St. Margaret's has always been a special place for me. No words can describe how I feel about the school.
To me, St. Margaret's is very special. There's nowhere like this place.
St. Margaret's is not only my alma mater, it's really my second home. I literally grew up here.
The love for the school and what it stands for, I don't think it has changed. So coming back to this family really is like coming back home.
175 years is a real long time. I'm very proud to be an ex-student of this school.
Well, it is always a welcome feeling, really. It's like coming home every time I visit, and I'm always on the lookout to see if things have changed. It's good to see changes. Then, of course, it's good to know that good things are kept and we continue. I think heritage is something very much so in Singapore and in St. Margaret's. At that time, there was no such thing as education for girls. And that is a heritage which our forebears have given us, really. And when the missionary came out to the Straits Settlements, that was Mrs. Maria Dyer. She wanted to start a school in Penang. And of course, she was unsuccessful because girls had to be hidden in the house, and not sent out to school. So she was very disappointed. And in Malacca, it was the same. So she was going actually back to China. So she had to stop over in Singapore. And that's where God had His purpose. She was not here to start a school, but she found the Muay Chai trade. So they were selling girls for slaves. So she got the government to help her to stop the trade. And she started an orphanage. And that was the beginning of the school, which she actually had intended to start right up in Penang. Of course, at the start, it was called the Chinese Girls' School. Then it was changed to CZMS. So CZMS would be Church of England, Zenana, Missionary Society School. Then after the war, it was changed to St. Margaret's. After the Queen of Scotland, it was actually pioneer work in education for girls. So it's the oldest girls' school in Singapore and the Far East, because no one else sent their girls to school. So that was the beginning. It became a boarding house, and the missionaries were staying here. The matron was a missionary also, and they looked after the girls.
I joined St. Margaret's in the 30s. Life in the boarding school was not so easy. As a boarder, you have your little duties to do. There are times when we had to have a bath down at the well. We had to be in our sarong. We used to tease each other, and we used to play games while even washing our clothes, and having a good time at the well, playing with the water there. Lessons were much simpler than what it was now, but mainly equipping the girls for being a good housemaker and homemaker, so that when they get out, they're able to find jobs with their little English that they have acquired. And I think that was the main purpose.
And then, of course, when the war came, the children who were in the boarding house, they were affected. But after the war, school started again.
I did learn quite a lot, just mixing up with these various girls from different backgrounds. And I think the girls were very grateful for the time they spent during the boarding school days, which closed really in 1961, because there was no more demand for boarding schools. And that was the end of the boarding school.
In 1957, after my PSLE, I was posted to St. Margaret's. When I first stepped into the school, it was very old. And the first thing that caught my attention was this big old colonial building with 2 levels. And I heard that it was used by the missionaries in the early years. I remember one year my classroom was up on the upper level, which had wooden floor. You know what? We had to walk very carefully for fear of stepping on any loose planks. And the classrooms had 2 entrances without doors and a low wall of about 1 meter high in between. During my school days, we had swimming lessons up in Mount Emily. There was a swimming pool, and the lessons were held usually early in the morning. After several years, the swimming pool was closed down and converted into a beautiful park. Our teachers conduct PE lessons up there. We are really very, very blessed to have such a nice park just across the road for us to use after all these years. The school's creed was introduced by Miss Chew.
So it's a very meaningful hymn actually. So I thought that would be truly a guiding light for them. So if they sing it, it will go in their heads, you know, I will be true, I will be pure, you know, and so on and so forth. And I felt this is what our people need.
Miss Maychew had been working with me as a teacher for many years until she became the principal. She was always looking around to help whoever needed help.
Miss Chu was actually my primary 6 science teacher. We knew her as a person who was very firm, very eloquent.
I remember Miss Chu teaching me handwriting lessons in P2. She would come in one period a week to teach us.
Ms. Maychew was definitely a disciplinarian. And what's interesting is that she was my principal when I was a primary school student here, and she was also my principal when I came back as a teacher. She would come in and teach moral education to all the primary 6 pupils. We were all listen very carefully to her during moral education because we didn't get to interact with her very much as a principal. So when we got to see her that one time a week, it was quite refreshing because she wasn't one of our usual teachers.
You know, I've been in education for 43 years and 3 months. And most of it has been spent at St. Margaret's. Teaching is my forte. I would never relinquish that. So whatever I could be fitted into to teach, I would do it.
So she really made an impact on many of us that till today we still remember her in terms of what she stands for.
She's a very selfless person. She's really truly special, you know, to St. Margaret's. And whatever she did was out of really her heart and really for the school. In 1961, I became a teacher of St. Margaret's. I remember when I went back to school to get my O-levels results, the principal then was Mrs. Martha Holloway. She asked me, would you like to do relief teaching for 2 weeks in the primary school? Which I readily agreed. And I stayed on when Mrs. Gertrude Song invited me to be the permanent teacher in the school. And I've never regretted or looked back for taking this path.
So Miss A.K. Lim, I remember vividly, she was my P4 math teacher. I think she is probably one of the most motherly people I've ever known. She is very kind and she's very patient. And I am very fortunate to actually have been in one of her classes so that I can actually speak of her with her many, many years of experience.
Miss A.K. Lim herself, she was a teacher in the school for many years, and slowly she turned and became my colleague, my supervisor, somebody that I reported to. So even though she was my teacher when I was younger and now my colleague, she was still a teacher to me.
And it was only when I came back as a teacher that I realized that, oh wow, you know, she has such a rich history behind her as well. And sometimes in my heart I do wonder, am I going to be like her one day too, right? Primary school and then secondary school and coming back as a teacher.
Do you have a favorite subject?
Is recess counted? Okay, then recess.
My favorite subject is maths, but if I didn't have to choose a study, I would choose recess.
I like school, and it's very fun.
Actually, we were one school. It was not St. Margaret's Primary School all the time. It was St. Margaret's School.
The separation of the primary and the secondary sections took place in 1960. The secondary section moved to Farrer Road, while the primary section remained here. In 1984, the old building here had to be torn down.
The buildings were decaying, so we had to go to a holding school and we had to pull down the old buildings.
So we had to move to Anthony Road Girls' School in Newton. It was quite an experience there because Newton was a flood-prone area. So during any heavy downpour, the whole school field would be flooded and the flood water would reach even the classrooms.
And the children would make origami boats and sail them out to the flood waters.
In 1986, when the new building was ready, it was homecoming for us. We were very, very happy to see better facilities and things were really totally different from the years before.
Our address changed when we left there to come back to the school. That's where 134 Sophia Road became 99 Bilkey Road. Right, the frontage was changed.
As a student, my uniform then was a white top with a pinafore and a round metal badge with CEZMS on it. But prior to that, before the 1930s, there was no uniform.
During my time in the 30s, we didn't have any special uniforms. Most times we wore sangfu.
The pupils could wear anything white, be it a samfu, a cheongsam, a sari, or an English frock. In 1974, there was another transition of the uniform. The green and white polka-dotted uniform was introduced, which we still use today.
I like my uniform because it has polka dots and my favorite color is green. So that's the reason why I like my uniform a lot, because of the unusual pattern compared to other schools.
The secondary school principal had this competition. The winner was the art teacher who designed the present uniform. And although they talked about changing it, in the end, they've decided to keep it because it's quite a unique uniform.
After my A-levels, I came to the school to do relief teaching. It was then that I decided, okay, I shall go to NIE because I thought, hey, this is something I can actually do.
I think there was never a question where I wanted to go after I graduated from NIE. I knew I wanted to come back here because I wanted to be part of the St. Margaret's family again.
When I first became a teacher, this was my first school, and this is still my only school up till now. So I've been teaching here for the last 17 years. Some of the teachers who are my teachers then are still teachers now. And I think these are the good feelings that we have.
To see some of my teachers still around, really, it's like I never left.
I guess that sense of home is quite nice. Yeah, coming home to something familiar.
I think the group of us, we have some history together. I mean, even though we were in different classes from primary to secondary school, I think the bulk of us, we've had certain shared experiences together.
It's very similar in a sense to what we have now, where the girls are also just as happy as how we were. I really wanted to get my pupils to experience the same thing that I did.
It's nice to be able to come back to the same building that I had once studied in. It brings back a lot of memories. So I wanted to be able to return to the school what it has given me.
I always tell this to my teachers. If you want your children to really accomplish much and do well, one thing you must do is to love them. That's all, love them. And when you love them and they love you back, they'll do everything for you, And actually, your role as a mentor, as a teacher, will reflect in them.
I can actually be quite a disciplinarian in class. I don't think too much about having to tell my students off or discipline them if they have done something wrong. But one thing that's important for me is that if I do that, they will know that I'm doing it out of care and concern and love for them. And I don't think twice about telling my students that I love them. Once you tell them that, your relationship changes pretty much instantly because they know that you are doing it for their good. And I think many teachers in St. Margaret's embody that. They do that as well. So I'm very proud to be part of the fraternity here.
Teaching is a calling where you can touch the hearts of the pupils and make a difference in their lives. I was asked this question many times. Why do you choose to be in St. Margaret's and in this profession all these years? Which I have only one answer. My passion for teaching and love for the kids and the school. And I've never regretted or looked back.
And this school, being a mission school and having been founded by missionaries, you know that it's always been centered on character, leadership, everything based on the Word of God. And I think that is important. it's very significant that we are here. I'm sure God had a hand. Because being next to the Istana was actually good for us. Because it's actually quite quiet here. Because they're not going to build any flats around there.
As a student, I remember taking public bus to school. I would stop somewhere along Orchard Road. In those days, we were allowed to walk through the Istana ground. So we took that route to come to school via the back gate of the Istana, which still faces the school.
Beyond the fence were the servants' quarters for the Istana, the government house. And they used to rear lots of chickens, and they would bring the eggs to sell to the teachers. Nice, big, fresh eggs. And we enjoyed that very much also. I've been asked before, you are undersized. Why don't you ask for relocation? I've been asked quite a few times. So I always say, if I've been made principal here for that long, it is to keep the land. This land belongs to the Lord. The Lord gave it to us, and be grateful for it. And use it, maximize it for His glory. And it is for the education of girls. As one of the ministers said at one of the anniversaries, he said, nothing in Singapore is as old as you all, So I think, we are part of history. Well, we've been here so long, and we have stood as an educational establishment. The longer we stay, I think it'll be harder to push us away.
When I stepped into this school, I was just a teenager. And I actually grew up here and grew old at the same time in this school. No words can describe how I feel about the school. Having been here for about 60 years, my bond with the school is very strong. And I feel that I belong to the school.
I think what makes the school special is because this has been a place where I've grown so much. Really, words cannot really totally express everything that I feel about St. Margaret's.
Too many people perceive St. Margaret's as a very special girls' school. And I would always be very proud to say, yeah, we are.
The cohesiveness, the culture, and the feel that you're in a family.
As a family, we are very united. The love for the school and what it stands for, I don't think it has changed. So coming back to this family really is like coming back home.
St. Mark's has really, I guess in a way, changed my life.
175 years is a real long time, and I'm very proud to be an ex-student of this school. It is the oldest school for girls, not only in Singapore but around the region. And it is truly by God's grace that we are so blessed and it has developed.
It is really God's work here to really build up women of caliber, of character. Women are so important to the family. And if we can build up a lot of women, like Proverbs 31, we would have done something good for Singapore. Because I think we need good women to build up good families, and to be good examples for the next generation. It's good to know that good things are kept, and we continue. We are 175 years old, and who knows how many more years we'll continue the school.